They say a wedding is the happiest day of your life, but for Amora, it became the day time stood still. The morning sunlight spilled through the stained-glass windows of St. Augustine's chapel, painting the white marble floor with shards of gold and blue. The music was gentle, the air smelled of roses and vanilla, and everything was perfect. Amora stood before the mirror in her bridal suite, her lace gown glimmering like frost beneath the light. The veil framed her face, and her hands trembled slightly as she touched the diamond ring on her finger. Today, she whispered to herself, everything changes. Her best friend and maid of honor, Helen, adjusted the veil with a teasing grin. Everything about you screams peace, Amora. After everything you've been through, you finally deserve this. Amora smiled, but there was a flicker in her eyes. After everything she'd been through. The phrase carried too much weight. Because 3 years ago, Amora wasn't this calm, graceful bride. She was the shattered ex-wife of a man the world called untouchable, Nathan Kalu, billionaire tech mogul, the kind of man whose name alone could make entire markets shift. And once upon a time, he'd shifted her world too, only to destroy it. But she never spoke about him anymore. Not to Helen. Not even to her fiancé, Daniel, the kind, grounded architect who taught her that love didn't have to hurt. The chapel bell rang once. The guests began to settle. Amora felt her pulse quicken. Her father's hand found hers as he prepared to walk her down the aisle. "You ready, sweetheart?" he asked softly. She nodded, forcing a smile. "More than ever." The doors opened. The organ music swelled, and as Amora took her first step down the aisle, every guest turned, mothers dabbing their eyes, friends whispering, cameras flashing. Daniel stood at the altar, tall and smiling, his eyes shimmering with affection. For a moment, Amora's world was perfect. Until the doors behind her slammed open. The music stopped and every head turned toward the entrance, and there he was. Nathan Kalu. 3 years hadn't dulled his presence. Dressed in a tailored black suit, eyes like polished obsidian, he walked with that quiet arrogance that used to make her heart race, and now made her blood freeze. He looked older, but still devastatingly composed, like a storm that had learned to walk upright. Amora's fingers tightened around her father's arm. "Dad," she whispered, her voice trembling. "What is he doing here?" Nathan's eyes locked on hers, and for a heartbeat, everything around her blurred. The murmurs swelled like waves crashing against stone. Daniel stepped down from the altar, confusion etched across his face. "Who is that?" he asked quietly, his gaze darting between Amora and the intruder. Nathan smiled, a slow, deliberate smirk that reeked of confidence and danger, that he spoke just loud enough for the chapel to hear. "You didn't really think you could marry someone else without saying goodbye properly, did you, Amora?" Gasps rippled through the room. The priest froze. Helen's jaw dropped. Even the photographer lowered his camera, unsure whether to keep filming or run for cover. Amora felt the world tilt. Her heart was pounding, her breath short, her thoughts tangled between fear, anger, and something far more complicated. She hadn't seen Nathan since the night she left him, with nothing but a suitcase. And now, here he was, crashing her wedding. Nathan took another step forward, ignoring the murmurs, the stunned stares, the priest's protests. "I know this looks bad," he said smoothly, "but it's worse than you think." Daniel's voice sharpened. "Who are you?" "I'm the man she forgot to mention," Nathan replied calmly, his gaze never leaving Amora. "Her husband." The words hit like thunder. The crowd erupted, gasps, whispers, confusion. Daniel turned pale, then furious. "How what?" Amora shook her head, voice breaking. "It's not what it sounds like. Nathan, stop this." But Nathan only stepped closer, lowering his voice just enough for her to hear. "You never signed the divorce papers, Amora. Legally, you still belong to me." The world spun. It wasn't true. It couldn't be, but deep down, a part of her remembered those final months, the lawyers, the chaos. Had she ever received confirmation? Or had she been so desperate to escape that she'd never checked? Nathan's words echoed through her mind, "You still belong to me." The chapel had gone silent again. Daniel's hands clenched into fists. Nathan turned to face him. "You seem like a good man. But you're about to marry someone who's still tied to me in ways you can't imagine." And then, the twist that no one saw coming, Nathan reached into his jacket and placed a folded letter on the nearest pew. Before you decide whether to go through with this, he said, you might want to read what she never told you. The letter was addressed to Daniel, but the handwriting was unmistakably Amora's. Her knees nearly gave out. I never wrote that, she whispered. Nathan's dark eyes flickered with something unreadable. Didn't you? And with that, he turned and walked out, leaving behind chaos, suspicion, and a bride on the verge of breaking. In that single moment, Amora's picture-perfect life shattered again, but what no one knew, not even Nathan, was that she had secrets of her own, secrets that could destroy them both. Sometimes, the scariest thing in the world isn't the person who walks into your life, but it's the truth they drag in with them. The chapel felt different now. The flowers were still beautiful. The guests were still seated. The music still hummed quietly in the background. But everything felt wrong. Amora stood frozen in the middle of the aisle. Her veil was slightly crooked, her hands were shaking, and the only thing louder than the whispers in the room was her heartbeat. At the front, Daniel stared at the folded letter on the wooden pew as if it were a bomb. Helen stood beside Amora, her face pale, eyes wide. Amora, Helen whispered, her voice small, what is going on? Is any of that true? Amora swallowed hard. Her throat felt dry. I don't know, she managed. I mean, I thought the divorce was done. It was years ago. The lawyers handled it. I never checked. Her father, still holding her arm, squeezed it gently. Do you want to sit down? He asked softly. She shook her head. If she sat, she was afraid she wouldn't get back up. All eyes were on her now. Not the happy bridal kind of attention. This was different. Heavy. Judging. Curious. Waiting for drama. And there, on the front pew, lay the letter with her handwriting on it. Daniel moved first. Slowly, like someone walking toward something dangerous. He picked up the letter. His fingers trembled a little as he unfolded it. Amora wanted to scream, don't read it. It's not mine, but the words died in her chest. The room went quiet. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Daniel's eyes moved along the page. At first, his face showed confusion. Then confusion turned to hurt. And hurt slowly turned into something darker. When he finally looked up, his eyes were shining, but not with joy. With pain. Is this true? He asked, his voice low, shaking. Amora took a step forward. I don't even know what it says, she said. Daniel, I swear to you, I didn't write anything. I haven't seen that letter in my life. He closed his eyes for a second, then read from it. Daniel, I'm sorry I lied. I didn't tell you about my marriage to Nathan, that I'm still legally his wife. I was afraid if you knew the truth, you'd leave me. A loud gasp went through the guests. For them, this wasn't just a wedding anymore, it was a live drama. Amora shook her head over and over. No, Daniel, listen to me. I never wrote that. Yes, I was married to Nathan. I told you that. But I thought everything was over. I thought the divorce was final. Daniel lowered the page slightly. Did you ever show me the divorce papers? He asked quietly. Silence. The kind that hurts. Amora opened her mouth but nothing came out. Had she? No. She remembered telling herself she should. But then life with Daniel became so peaceful, so different from the chaos with Nathan, that she just never went back to check. Helen stepped in. Daniel, come on. You know Amora. She would never. Daniel cut her off gently. I know what I believed about her, he said softly. I'm just not sure what's real right now. The words sliced through Amora. This was what lies and secrets did, even old ones. Even unintentional ones. They didn't just stay in the past. They followed you. Sat beside you at the altar. Crashed your wedding with a billionaire in a black suit. The priest cleared his throat awkwardly. Perhaps, we should all take a moment. Maybe step aside, talk privately. The guests can wait. The guests did not look like they wanted to wait. They wanted front row seats. But Amora nodded weakly. A few minutes later, Amora, Daniel, Helen, and her father sat in a side room off the chapel. The walls were plain, the light softer. It didn't feel like a wedding room. It felt like a courtroom. The letter lay on the table between them. Daniel stared at it like it might start talking on its own. If you didn't write it, he said finally, looking at Amora, then who did? Nathan, Amora said immediately. It has to be. He's trying to ruin this. He always needed control. He hated when he couldn't control me. This is just another game. Daniel frowned. But the handwriting. It looks like mine, she admitted. But that doesn't mean anything. He's powerful. He's rich. People like him can fake anything. Amora's father spoke up. Daniel, son, I've watched my daughter rebuild herself from nothing. After she left Nathan, she was broken. Completely. If she says she believed the divorce was final, I believe her. Helen nodded fiercely. Same here. And honestly, if Nathan walked in here with a signed confession saying I'm manipulating you, people would still call it strategy. That's how he works. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, stress written all over his face. This isn't just about trust, he said. If what he said is true legally, I could be marrying someone who is still married. That's a mess neither of us wants. He wasn't wrong. Marriage wasn't just love and flowers. It was law. Paperwork. Real-world consequences. Amora took a slow breath. Then we check, she said. Right now. We call my old lawyer. We find out the truth. And if the divorce isn't final, I'll fix it. I'll make it right. I promise you. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Under all the hurt and shock, there was still something in his eyes, care, fear, and love, fighting to stay alive. Okay, he said finally. Okay. Let's find out the truth. When things fall apart, some people run away. Others go looking for the broken pieces. Amora's father stepped out to make the call. He still had the lawyer's number. Amora sat there, hands clenched in her lap, staring at nothing. I should have checked, she whispered. I should have been sure. Helen squeezed her hand. You were just trying to survive back then, she said softly. You weren't thinking about documents. You were thinking about breathing. Amora looked at her. Is this my fault? Helen paused. It's not that simple. But this is one thing I'll say, you can't outrun your past if you never turn around to face it. That hit Amora hard. For years, she had tried to pretend Nathan was just a bad memory. But now, standing in the middle of her new life, that memory had walked right through the door in $1,000 suit. Her father walked back in, his face serious. Everyone sat up straight. Well? Amora asked. What did he say? Her father sat down slowly, as if the chair had become heavier. I spoke to your old lawyer, he said. He checked the system. He looked directly at Amora. You filed for divorce, but Nathan never signed his side. The court never issued the final decree. The words felt like a punch to the chest. So, Daniel said quietly, right now, legally, you are still married to Nathan Kalu. For a moment, the room spun. It wasn't that she still loved Nathan. She didn't. She was afraid of him, angry with him. But the idea that, on paper, she still belonged to him? It made her feel trapped all over again. Tears welled up in her eyes. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear, I didn't know. Daniel watched her. He seemed to be fighting his own storm inside. Finally, he reached out and gently took her hand. I believe you, he said. Amora's head snapped up. You do? He nodded. You're not perfect. You make mistakes. You should have checked. But you don't look like a woman who planned this. You look like someone who just had her world flipped upside down. Again. A single tear fell down her cheek. I don't want him to own any part of my life anymore, she said. Not my heart. Not my mind. And definitely not my future. Daniel let out a long breath. So we fix it. You complete the divorce. You free yourself, officially this time. Not just emotionally. And the wedding? Her father asked quietly. Silence again. There it was. The big question. Helen bit her lip, watching Daniel. The decision was his as much as Amora's. He looked at the dress. The bouquet. the ring still on her finger. Then back at Amora. "I love you," he said. "But I don't want to start our marriage with legal chaos hanging over our heads. Not like this. Not with him still attached to you on paper." "So we cancel?" Amora asked, her voice breaking a little. He shook his head slowly. "Not cancel. Postpone. We pause. You go face this. You cut all ties with him the right way. Then, when it's done, if you still want me, and I still want you." He gave a small, sad smile. "We walk down that aisle again. For real this time. No ghosts. No surprises." It hurt. It hurt so much. But some pains are clean. Honest. Like a cut made by a surgeon to heal something broken. Amora nodded, tears spilling freely now. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll do it. I'll finish this. I'll get my freedom back." And just like that, the wedding day became something else, not an ending. Not a beginning but a doorway. When they stepped back out into the chapel, the guests watched them, holding their breath. The music had long stopped. The petals on the floor suddenly felt out of place. Daniel took Amora's hand and stood at the front. He spoke clearly, with quiet strength. "Thank you all for coming," he began. "We have something to tell you. Today is not going to end the way we planned." Murmurs rose, then fell. "Sometimes life reveals truths at the worst moments," Daniel continued. "But those truths can also save us from bigger problems later." He glanced at Amora with a soft look. "We're going to take some time to fix what's broken. To make things right. So when we stand here again, it will be without questions." There was a long pause. Then, slowly, people began to clap. Amora looked around, surprised. Not everyone wanted drama. Some people wanted growth. As they left the chapel together, hand in hand but with new distance between them, Amora felt a mix of sadness and courage. Her wedding had stopped. But her story, her story was just getting started. Because somewhere in the city, in a high-rise office with glass walls and secrets, Nathan Kalu was watching everything unfold on his phone screen. And he smiled. "Good," he murmured. "Now she has to come back to me." Sometimes to find peace, you have to walk straight into the storm you ran away from. It had been 3 days since the wedding that never happened. 3 days since Nathan Kalu turned Amora's world upside down. The news had spread everywhere. The runaway wedding, people called it online. Photos, rumors, gossip columns. Everyone had a version of the story, except the truth. Amora sat by her apartment window, wrapped in a blanket, staring out at the city lights. The night sky reflected off the glass, and in her reflection, she barely recognized herself. No dress. No makeup. Just a woman who had loved, lost, and now, had to face the man who once broke her completely. Helen sat across from her on the couch, laptop open, reading emails. "So," Helen said, closing the laptop. "Your lawyer set up a meeting with Nathan's team. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., at his company headquarters." Amora's stomach twisted. "His headquarters," she repeated softly. That IT wasn't just an office. It was his empire. Kalu Industries. The skyscraper that symbolized power, money, and control, everything Nathan was. Everything she had escaped. Helen leaned forward. "Are you sure you want to go yourself? I mean, your lawyer could handle it." Amora looked out the window again. "No," she said. "I need to see him. Face to face. I want this to end with me saying it's over, not some piece of paper." Helen nodded slowly. "Okay. But promise me something." "What?" "If he tries anything, you walk away. Don't let him drag you back into whatever game he's playing." Amora smiled weakly. "I'm not that woman anymore." She said that with confidence, but deep down, her heart still remembered the way he used to look at her, like she was both his weakness and his possession. The next morning, the elevator ride up to the 57th floor of Kalu Industries felt endless. Everything smelled of expensive cologne and polished steel. People in suits moved quickly, whispering into earpieces. The whole place screamed Nathan Kalu, organized, sharp, and intimidating. The elevator doors opened to a wide office space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. And there he was. Nathan stood by the glass wall, his hands in his pockets, looking out like a king watching over his kingdom. When he turned, that same calm smile appeared, the one that used to melt her and terrify her all at once. "Amora," he said, voice smooth as silk. "You came." She walked in, heels clicking against the marble floor. "You didn't leave me much of a choice." He tilted his head slightly. "Oh, I think you had a choice. You always do." She sat across from his massive desk, refusing to look intimidated. "Let's skip the small talk. I want this divorce finalized. No more delays. No more games." Nathan didn't sit. He just circled around slowly, like a predator examining his prey. "You look different," he said quietly. "Stronger. But your eyes," he paused. "They're still the same." "Don't do that," she said sharply. "Don't talk like you still know me." He smiled again. "Oh, I know you better than anyone, Amora. You pretend to be calm, but you're shaking inside. You pretend you've moved on, but you still look at me like you want to understand why." Her jaw tightened. "Why what? Why I walked away? Why I ruined everything?" His voice softened, almost sad. "You think I wanted that?" Amora's breath caught for a moment. She hated that he could still sound sincere. "You didn't ruin it," she said bitterly. "You destroyed it. You destroyed me." Nathan sighed and finally sat down. "Maybe. But you never asked what I was protecting you from." She frowned. "Protecting me? Is that what you call it now?" He leaned forward slightly, eyes locking on hers. "You think you know everything about me, Amora, but you don't. There were things going on back then, things I couldn't tell you." Amora shook her head. "Stop. I'm not here for your secrets. I'm here for my freedom." He chuckled softly. "Freedom. Such a lovely word. But tell me, do you really think that sweet architect of yours can protect you from what's coming?" Her stomach flipped. "What do you mean by that?" Nathan didn't answer. Instead, he opened a drawer and pulled out a brown envelope. "Before you sign anything, you should read this." "I don't want your letters," she snapped. "Not again." "This one isn't from me," he said quietly. "It's from someone who wants you dead." The room went silent. Amora blinked. "What?" Nathan slid the envelope across the desk. She hesitated, then slowly opened it. Inside were photos, blurry, black and white surveillance shots, of her. Walking home. Shopping. Having dinner with Daniel. Her hands trembled. "What is this?" "A warning," Nathan said. "Someone's been following you for weeks. They're not after me. They're after you." She stared at him in disbelief. "You're lying. You're trying to scare me." "Am I?" He opened another file and placed it on the table. "This came to my office yesterday. No sender. Just your name. Inside, those photos and one message." He turned the paper around so she could see it. It said, in neat printed letters, "She took what was mine. Now I'll take her." Amora's breath caught. The world suddenly felt smaller. The sound of the city outside faded into nothing. She pushed the paper back toward him. "Who sent this?" "I don't know yet," Nathan said. "But I have my suspicions." Her eyes flashed. "And you want me to believe you're helping me? After everything you've done?" Nathan leaned back in his chair. "Believe what you want. But whether you hate me or not, you're still in danger. And if something happens to you, it's on me. Because you were once mine." She stood up, anger mixing with fear. "I'm not yours. Not then. Not now. Not ever." He looked up at her, eyes dark and serious. "You can keep saying that, Amelia. But the truth doesn't care what you say. The truth cares about what's coming." She hesitated. "What's coming?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stood and walked to the window again. The skyline stretched endlessly behind him. "You have enemies you don't even know exist," he said quietly. "And they'll use Daniel to get to you." Amora felt her chest tighten. "Leave him out of this." "I can't," Nathan said. "He's already part of it." Amora's heart pounded. Every word he spoke made her feel like the ground beneath her was shifting. Was this another game? Or was she really in danger? Why should I believe anything you say? She demanded. Nathan turned, eyes soft but deadly serious. Because the man you're marrying isn't who you think he is. And just like that, the game changed again. Trust is like glass. Once it breaks, you can glue it back together, but it never looks the same again. Amora drove home in silence that night. The streets glowed wet under the streetlights, and every shadow felt alive. She couldn't stop replaying Nathan's words in her mind. The man you're marrying isn't who you think he is. It felt like poison slowly spreading through her chest, and no matter how hard she tried to push the thought away, it stayed, crawling through her mind like an echo she couldn't silence. When she finally pulled into her apartment's parking lot, her hands were shaking on the steering wheel. Daniel's car was already there. The sight should have comforted her. But instead, her stomach turned. She sat for a full minute before getting out. Inside, the apartment was warm and dimly lit. Daniel was sitting on the couch, reading. When he saw her, he smiled, that gentle, familiar smile that used to make her feel safe, but tonight, it only made her more uneasy. "Hey," he said softly, closing his book. "I was about to call you. How did the meeting go?" She hung up her coat and forced a smile. "It was intense. But I think it's almost done." He got up and walked over to her. "Almost?" "Yeah. Nathan's lawyer needs to file the final documents. After that, it's over." Daniel nodded. "Good. You deserve to move on." He reached for her hand, but she hesitated, just slightly. He noticed. "Amora," he said quietly, "you're shaking." "I'm just tired," she lied. He studied her face for a second longer, then let her go. "You look pale. Want me to make you tea?" "Sure," she said. "Thanks." As he walked into the kitchen, Amora sank onto the couch. She looked around their apartment, the cozy furniture, the framed photos, the scent of cinnamon from the candle on the shelf. Everything felt normal. Safe. Familiar. But her heart didn't believe it anymore. Once fear enters love, even comfort starts to feel like danger wearing a smile. Her phone buzzed suddenly. A message, unknown number. She frowned and opened it. "He's lying to you. Check the second drawer in his office desk." Her heart jumped at no name. No clue who sent it. Just that one line. She looked toward the kitchen. Daniel was humming softly while boiling water. Her chest tightened. Could this be Nathan? Was he playing with her? Or was there really something to find? Her curiosity fought with fear. But fear never wins against the truth. She stood quietly and walked toward Daniel's small office. The door was half open. The room smelled like paper and coffee. His desk was neat, just his laptop, a notepad, and some design sketches. She hesitated, then slowly pulled open the second drawer. Inside were envelopes. Several of them. All with names she didn't recognize. She opened one that it was a check for $50,000 made out to someone named K. Rivers. Her hands shook as she opened another. Another check. This one for $100,000. Another name. She felt cold all over. Daniel was an architect. A good one, yes. But where was this kind of money coming from? Just then, a voice behind her made her jump. "Amora," Daniel said softly, from the doorway. Her heart almost stopped. He was standing there, holding 2 mugs of tea, his eyes dark and unreadable. "What are you doing?" he asked. "What are you doing?" he asked. She tried to speak, but the words tangled in her throat. "I just dropped something." He set the mugs down slowly. "And what did you find in my drawer?" She stepped back a little. "I wasn't snooping, Daniel, I swear. I got a message, someone told me to check." He frowned. "Someone?" "I don't know who," she said quickly. "It came from an unknown number." Daniel ran a hand through his hair, sighing deeply. "So Nathan is already trying to poison you against me. I should have seen this coming." "Daniel, what are these checks?" she pressed, voice trembling. "Why are you sending money to people I've never heard of?" He hesitated. Just long enough for her to notice. "Business," he said finally. I invest in projects. Not everything I do goes through the firm. You know that. Then why hide it? She asked. He stepped closer. Because I know how you get when you're anxious. And after everything with Nathan, I didn't want you to overthink. Her heart hurt. Because part of what he said sounded true, and that made it even harder to know if it was a lie. She nodded slowly, trying to calm her breathing. Okay, maybe I overreacted. Daniel's shoulders relaxed slightly. It's okay, he said softly. He's trying to get inside your head. Don't let him win. He reached out, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Promise me something. What? Don't meet him again. Whatever he says, whatever he shows you, don't let him drag you back into that world. She looked into his eyes. They were kind. Familiar. But somewhere deep in them, there was a flicker she didn't recognize. I promise, she said, though her voice was small. Sometimes promises are made from fear, not trust, and those promises always break first. That night, after Daniel fell asleep, Amora couldn't rest. She kept hearing Nathan's words echo in her mind. He's not who you think he is. She slipped out of bed quietly, walked back to Daniel's office, and opened his laptop. The password hadn't changed. She hesitated for a second, then typed it in. The screen lit up. She opened his emails. Most were normal, clients, plans, invoices. But then she saw one folder hidden inside his drafts. It was labeled CR. She clicked it. Inside were dozens of unsent messages. They were all addressed to one person, Nathan Kalu. Her blood ran cold. Each email was short, like updates. She still doesn't know. She's asking about the money. I'll make sure she signs the papers. Amora's hands started shaking so hard she almost dropped the laptop. Her entire body went numb. Daniel wasn't her safe place. He wasn't her peace. He was working with Nathan. The last draft email made her breath stop completely. Once it's done, she'll never know we were both part of it. Amora's heart hammered in her chest. She shut the laptop and stumbled back. The room spun. Every word, every promise, every gentle smile, it was all a lie. She turned toward the bedroom door. Daniel was still asleep, his silhouette calm in the dim light. She wanted to scream. She wanted to cry. But instead, she did something she hadn't done in years. She grabbed her keys and ran. That's the thing about the truth, that it doesn't free you right away. First, it destroys everything you thought was real. As she drove through the night, her hands trembling on the wheel, Amora finally understood what Nathan meant. But if Ethan and Daniel were working together, then why would Ethan warn her? Was he protecting her, or just setting her up for something even worse? The city lights blurred through her tears. One thing was clear, she had no one left to trust. And somewhere behind her, a pair of headlights began to follow. The game wasn't between two men anymore, that it was between truth and survival. Running is easy, the hard part is knowing where to run to. Amora's car cut through the empty streets. The city lights streaked past, her heart racing faster than the speedometer. Every time she looked in the mirror, those headlights were still there, steady, patient, following. She didn't know if it was Daniel, Nathan, or someone else entirely. She only knew she couldn't go home. Not yet. She pulled into a gas station on the edge of the city, parked behind the building, and sat there shaking. The world outside felt too quiet. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from that same unknown number. If you want answers, come to the lagoon. Midnight. Alone. She stared at the screen. Her mind screamed no. Every instinct told her it was a trap, but then again, everything around her was already a trap. Sometimes you walk into the fire, not because you're brave, but because standing in the dark hurts more. It was 11:45 p.m. when she reached the lagoon. The air smelled of salt and rust. The waves slapped softly against the wooden posts. A few boats bobbed in the distance, their lights like small, tired stars. She parked, stepped out, and looked around. No one. Then, footsteps. From the shadows beneath an old streetlight, a figure appeared that it wasn't Nathan. It wasn't Daniel. It was a woman. Tall. Sharp suit. Calm eyes that seemed to measure everything. Amora Kenneth, the woman said. You're harder to find than I expected. Who are you? Amora demanded. The woman smiled slightly. Detective Claire Feeney. Financial Crimes Division. I think we need to talk. They sat on a bench by the water, the detective's voice calm but precise. You've been caught in something bigger than a broken marriage, she said. We've been watching both Nathan Kalu and Daniel Juru for months. Amora's breath hitched. Watching them? Why? Because they've been laundering money through fake architecture projects, Claire said. Shell companies. Offshore accounts. Millions. We believe Daniel was the front, and Nathan was the investor behind it. Amora blinked, her stomach turning. Daniel, my fiancé, is part of that. Claire nodded. And we think you became the perfect cover. He used your name to open accounts. We've already found one in London, in your maiden name. Amora's hands flew to her mouth. What? Yes, the detective said gently. That's why someone's been following you. Not to hurt you, to keep you from finding out. And Nathan's warning? It wasn't a lie. He wanted to keep you alive long enough to use you. Amora felt her chest tighten. Use me, how? Claire hesitated. Nathan's been planning to expose Daniel to the authorities. But not because he suddenly grew a conscience. He wants to destroy his partner and take the money for himself. The night wind whipped across the lagoon, carrying the smell of rain and metal. Amora looked out at the black water. So Daniel was lying to me. And Nathan was lying to him. And both of them were lying to me. That's about right, Claire said quietly. But you can turn this around. We need evidence, proof that links them together. You were close to both. You can get it. Amora stared at her. You want me to spy on them? Not spy, Claire said. Survive. Take control of your own story. It's strange how life twists. One day you're planning a wedding, the next you're planning how to stay alive. The next morning, Amora drove to Nathan's office again. This time she didn't shake. She walked straight past the receptionist and into his glass-walled room. He looked up, startled but amused. Back so soon? I know about Daniel, she said coldly. And about the money. About the offshore accounts. For a moment, his face stayed calm. Then he smiled slowly. So the detective finally found you. You knew, she asked. I made sure she would, he said. She's been chasing me for years. I needed her to look at Daniel instead. Amora's eyes widened. You used me as bait. He stood and walked toward her. No. I kept you safe. You were always smarter than the rest of us, Amora. You just forgot it. Stop flattering me, she snapped. I'm done being part of your game. He sighed. You can't walk away now. Both of us are already in it. She glared at him. Then I'll burn it all down. Nathan studied her, then laughed softly. That's the woman I fell for. She left the building shaking but determined. For the first time, she wasn't the broken one. She had something neither Nathan nor Daniel expected, the truth. She drove straight to Claire's office, handed over a flash drive she'd taken from Nathan's desk years ago, old files she'd once been too scared to open. When they plugged it in, line after line of encrypted data appeared. Claire's eyes widened. This is everything. You just gave us what we needed. What happens now? Amora asked quietly. Claire looked at her. Now, we let them destroy each other. 2 weeks later, the news broke: billionaire Nathan Kalu under federal investigation for fraud and conspiracy. Architect Daniel Juru missing, presumed on the run. Amora watched the reports from her small kitchen table, tea in hand. The same city skyline blinked outside her window, but for the first time in years, it didn't feel like it was watching her. It felt quiet. She looked down at her left hand. The ring was gone. Her future was unwritten. And for the first time, that didn't scare her. Then her phone buzzed. A single message. Unknown number again. It's not over. They were never the only two. Amora froze. Outside, a car she didn't recognize idled at the corner, headlights off. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and whispered to herself, I'm not running this time. Because when you've already walked through fire, Shadows don't scare you anymore. When the game seems finished, that's usually when the real player walks in. 3 days passed after the headlines exploded. Nathan Kalu was under arrest. Daniel Juru had vanished and Amora Kenneth was really trying, to live a normal day again. She woke early, made coffee, even watered the small plant by her window. The city outside was noisy, alive, ordinary. For the first time in years, she thought maybe this could be peace. Then the envelope arrived. No name, no stamp. Just slid under her door like a secret someone wanted her to trip over. Inside was a single photo, black and white like the others that it showed Nathan, in handcuffs, being led into a car, and behind him, standing in the crowd, barely visible, was her. Amora's own face, circled in red marker. At the bottom, a note written in block letters. He was only one piece. You were always the prize. Her stomach tightened. She checked the hallway, empty. Her hands shook as she called Detective Claire. Detective, I just got another message. Claire cut her off. Stay inside. Lock your doors. I'm on my way. By the time Claire arrived, Amora had replayed every sound in the apartment 10 times. Claire held the photo carefully inside a plastic sleeve. This isn't from Nathan or Daniel, she said. Different paper, different ink. Someone new. Amora rubbed her arms. Someone who knows where I live. Claire nodded slowly. And someone who wants you to feel watched. They sat at the table, the city sirens faint in the distance. Listen, Claire said quietly, there's something we didn't tell you before. When we traced the money trail between Nathan and Daniel, there was a third account. Hidden deeper than the rest. Amelia frowned. Another partner? Yes, Claire said. A silent one. The name on the account was Kenneth Industries. Amora blinked. Kenneth? That's my name. Claire met her eyes. I know. The company was opened 17 years ago, by your late mother. Amora felt her breath catch. My mother? But she ran a bookstore. She wasn't part of anything like this. That's what we thought, Claire said. But after she died, someone kept the account alive. Money has been moving through it for years. And whoever's been running it used both Nathan and Daniel without them realizing. Amora's mind spun. So, my mother's company is the real key. Claire nodded. And whoever controls it now, the third player, is the one who's been pulling every string. That night, Amora couldn't sleep. She sat with the old photo album she kept hidden under her bed, pictures of her mother, smiling in sunlight, holding little Amora by the hand. Could that gentle woman have been part of something dark? She flipped through the pages until one photo made her pause. Her mother, standing in front of a tall building with a sign half visible behind her. Kalu Industries. Her throat went dry. No way. She grabbed her phone and zoomed in. In the background was a young man in a suit, Nathan Kalu, years younger, standing beside her mother, shaking her hand. Amora stared at the picture. Her mother and Nathan knew each other. Every truth she uncovered only opened another door, and behind each door waited a face she thought she knew. The next morning, Amora went to the detention center. She wasn't supposed to see Nathan, but Claire arranged a brief supervised visit. Nathan looked tired but still composed, sitting behind the glass. When he saw her, his eyes softened, maybe guilt, maybe something else. Amora, he said quietly, I told you it wasn't over. She slid the photo across the metal counter, the one of him with her mother years ago. Start talking. How did you know her? He stared at it for a long moment. Finally, he said, your mother was the first investor in my company. The one who gave me my start. My mother? She didn't have that kind of money. She did, Nathan said. She just never told you. Kenneth Industries was hers. But she wasn't alone. There was another man, a partner named Victor Morgan. He disappeared after she died. Amora frowned. So this Victor might be the one running everything now? Nathan nodded slowly. He was brilliant. Ruthless. And he loved your mother. When she died, something broke in him. He blamed me. Blamed you for what? Nathan's jaw tightened. For choosing business over saving her. Silence. What happened to her, Nathan? She whispered. He looked at her through the glass. That fire in the bookstore, it wasn't an accident. Amora left the prison in shock. The streets looked different now, darker, sharper, like the city itself was hiding something. She called Claire immediately. "Detective," he said, "the fire wasn't an accident." He mentioned a man named Victor Morgan. Claire was quiet for a long second. "I know that name," she said finally. "He's not just anyone. He's one of the biggest private investors in this city. And we've never been able to link him to anything illegal." Amora stopped walking. "Then we have to." Claire's voice hardened. "If Nathan's telling the truth, Victor Morgan isn't just the third player. He's the one who built the board." That evening, Amora returned home to find her door slightly open, her breath caught. She stepped inside slowly, no sound except the ticking clock. On the table lay another envelope. Inside it, a single key, and a card with one address printed on it. Kenneth Industries, Storage Facility Number 3. She clutched the key, her heart pounded, but this time it wasn't fear. It was purpose. She texted Claire the address and waited for a reply and no answer. Another message popped up instead, from that unknown number again. "You deserve to know the truth about your mother. Come alone." Amora stood there, the city humming beyond her windows. She took a deep breath. She'd been running from her past for too long, now it was calling her by name. She grabbed her coat, the key, and her courage, and walked out into the night. Somewhere out there waited the truth, about her mother, about Nathan, about everything that had burned before she was old enough to understand. Because the only way to end a story built on lies is to find the one who wrote it. Every secret eventually finds its way home, but not everyone is ready to open the door. The night was cold and sharp as Amora drove toward the address printed on the card. The road wound through the edges of the industrial district, silent warehouses, old shipping yards, and the low hum of the harbor. The GPS beeped softly as she turned into a narrow lane. At the end stood a gray concrete building with faded letters, Kenneth Industries, Storage Facility Number 3. It looked abandoned, the windows were dark, the air smelled of rust and dust, but when she stepped closer, motion lights flickered on, one by one, guiding her like a line of cautious whispers. The key in her pocket felt heavier than it should have. She found the metal door marked Office. The lock turned easily, almost too easily. Inside, the air was cool and dry. Shelves lined the walls, filled with old folders, boxes, and thick layers of time. And then, from the far corner, a voice broke the silence. "Amora Kenneth," the man said quietly. "You look just like her." He stepped out of the shadows, tall, gray hair, a calm face lined with years of thought. There was no weapon in his hand, no threat in his posture, just sadness. "You're Victor Morgan," she said carefully. He nodded. "You've been looking for answers. And I've been waiting for you to ask the right questions." Amora's heartbeat thudded in her ears. "You knew my mother." His eyes softened. "I loved your mother." The words landed like a stone in still water. "I worked with her," he continued. "We started Kenneth Industries together. It wasn't meant to be a business empire. It was a dream, a company built on trust and fairness. She believed business could be kind. But people like Nathan saw opportunity instead." Amora took a step closer. "Nathan said she invested in his company." Victor nodded slowly. "Yes. She believed in him, thought she could guide him to use his power for good. But Nathan had other plans. When she found out he was laundering money, she threatened to expose him. A week later, her bookstore burned down." Amora's breath caught. "You're saying Ethan killed her?" Victor looked at her for a long time. "I can't prove it. But I spent years collecting what evidence I could. Enough to destroy him financially. Not enough for the law." "So you made Daniel part of it," she said bitterly. "Another pawn." Victor shook his head. "Daniel came later. He wanted money, Nathan wanted to hide his crimes. I simply watched. Until you stepped into their lives. That's when everything changed." She frowned. "Why me?" He smiled faintly. "Because you're your mother's daughter. And they both underestimated what that means. Sometimes, strength skips a generation, and when it returns, it doesn't ask permission." Victor led her to a steel cabinet and unlocked it. Inside were binders, drives, and old photographs. He handed her one, a picture of her mother standing beside a younger Victor and Nathan. "She built this company," he said quietly. "You should have inherited it. But Nathan made sure you grew up believing she had nothing." Amora traced her mother's face in the photo with her finger. "Why tell me all this now?" "Because the truth was never meant to bury you," Victor said. "It was meant to free you." He took out another folder, full of documents stamped confidential. "These are the original company papers. Your mother's signature is on them. By law, you're the rightful owner of Kenneth Industries, now known as Kalu Industries. Not Nathan. Not anyone else." Amora stared at him. "You mean, all of this belongs to me?" "Yes," he said. "But power has its price." Before she could reply, the lights suddenly flickered. A hum filled the air, then footsteps echoed in the hallway. Victor's face went still. "We're not alone." He turned to the door. Amora froze. The handle turned, and a man stepped in, tall, sharp, wearing a black coat. "Daniel." Her heart dropped. "Daniel." He smiled, tired but cold. "You never could just let things go, could you?" "Daniel, what are you doing here?" she demanded. He ignored her and looked at Victor. "So you finally showed your face." Victor's tone stayed calm. "You've made a mess of things, Daniel. You used me." Daniel snapped. "You promised I'd get out rich and clean." "I promised you nothing," Victor said. "You made your own choices." Amora's voice broke through. "Stop. Both of you. I don't even understand what's happening anymore." Daniel turned to her. His eyes were strange, not cruel, but desperate. "He's lying, Amora. He's been using you from the start. He doesn't care about your mother. He just wants control." "That's not true," Victor said sharply. Daniel took a step closer to her. "Think about it. You really believe this man waited all these years just to hand you power? No. He wants a name he can hide behind. Yours." Amora's chest tightened. "Victor." Victor didn't answer immediately. He looked tired. "Amora, sometimes doing good means holding power that others can't be trusted with." Daniel laughed darkly. "There it is. The truth. He doesn't want justice. He wants the throne. When everyone tells you a different truth, the only thing left to trust is your own heartbeat." The tension thickened. Daniel reached into his coat and pulled out a flash drive. "This has every file. Every transaction. Every lie," he said. "I stole it from Nathan before he was arrested. You want the truth, Amora? Take it. See for yourself who's really been pulling the strings." He tossed it on the table. Amora stared at it, that small piece of plastic that could finally show her everything. But before she could move, Victor spoke softly. "Careful. You open that, and you won't be able to unsee what's inside." Amora looked between them. Two men, two sides of a story, and a flash drive that might burn both worlds down. She picked it up slowly, feeling the weight of it in her palm. "I'm done being someone else's pawn," she said quietly. "I'll find out the truth myself." She slipped it into her jacket pocket. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Amora, please. You don't understand." "No," she said. "I finally do." She turned toward the door. But just before she stepped out, she looked back. Victor's expression was unreadable. "Whatever you find," he said softly, "remember this. Your mother believed truth was worth dying for." Amora's voice was steady. "And I believe it's worth living for." Narrator's voice calm, final. The night didn't end with a gunshot or a scream. It ended with a choice. One woman walking away, holding the power to rewrite her past and her future. As she drove away from the warehouse, the flash drive glimmered under the streetlights like a tiny promise. She didn't know yet who was lying, who was protecting her, or what the files would reveal. But she knew one thing for sure: she wasn't afraid anymore. Because the only thing more dangerous than a secret was a woman who'd finally stopped running from it.